Welcome to this week's Hymn of the Week. This week we have Glory to God 828, More Love to Thee, O Christ. I just sang the verse that's not in the hymnal, and it really tells the story of where we believe Elizabeth Payson Prentice was when she wrote this hymn in 1856. So if we can, there's a couple interesting things. First of all the poems she wrote, 120 of them, this is the only one that survived. She was still an amazing author, published a book. However, in 1852, when she wrote this, she had already lost two young children. And imagine Eddie and Bessie. And so at that point, in addition to having a pain constantly, almost a chronic pain throughout her life, most sources say racked with pain, the body racked with pain. So losing two children, and then in 1856, 4 years after losing two children, young children by the way, her next child, Minnie, at the age of 2, is facing a serious illness, and it becomes almost fatal, near fatal. She does survive it. But in the midst of that is when we see this text by Elizabeth Payson Prentice. And that's why I started singing with this verse that comes between verses 2 and 3 in the hymnal. Let sorrow do its work, send grief and pain. Sweet are thy messengers, sweet their refrain. When they can sing with me, more love to thee, more love to thee. Or more love of Christ to thee, sorry. And then more love to thee, more love to thee. So what an amazing act of faith at this point for Elizabeth. And in 1869, the text becomes unearthed, so to say. So it sat around, dormant and very personal, which makes sense based on what she was going through. So it sat there for 13 years. And then in 1869, at the request of her husband, Dr. George L. Prentice, she added another verse. And that is the verse we see here in the hymnal is verse 3. Then shall my latest breath whisper thy praise. This be the parting cry my heart shall raise. This still its prayer shall be, more love, O Christ, to thee, more love to thee, more love to thee. And this text was inspired by, as far as we know, the hymn, Nearer, My God, to Thee. And they are very similar. Now, of course, the tune is by Doane, and we've recently spoken about Doane with the hymn To God Be the Glory, and how he is a well-known composer of the Moody Sankey revivalist team. And in 1870, he just saw this text and just decided to set a tune to it. And of course, this text is very powerful. I can see how that would have happened. So the other thing that we know inspired Elizabeth Prentice was the story of Jacob when he is dealing with the idea of that he actually stole Esau's birthright. And that's in Genesis. So in that way, the way that he was dealing with that encouraged her to trust God even more in her faith, as far as we understand today, and be able to pen this text. So it's important to sing this with, I think, in the organ registration, a lot of color. So I try to change as much as I can without letting it get in the way. So here is More Love to Thee, O Christ. More love to Thank you very much for listening to Hymn of the Week.